There's a young lady that's coming now that's going to be sharing her testimonial. Her name is Shelley Haddix Greenfield, and she's got a message that she needs to share with you about what's happened in her own life. Would you make her welcome as she comes to share her story?
My journey began in October of 1980 when I married my husband, John. He was already serving in the U.S. Army a year before, so it was the beginning of our military life together. By 1985, my husband received orders for his second tour in Korea, and we decided that I would go with him this time. At the beginning of our second year there, I became pregnant, and after a difficult birth, Justin Matthew Greenfield was born in December of 1986 at the 121st Evacuation Hospital, Yongsan Army Base, South Korea. We headed back to the States for our next adventure in May of 1987. We were greeted with signs and American flags at the airport by lots of our family members, excited to see our new baby. Justin was your typical little boy. He was rambunctious and into everything at times, but he also had that little sweetness about him. When he was 2.5, he began his love for sports and loved to play baseball out in the backyard. By the time he was 3, he was into collecting sport cards, and he would have them all over the floor and could tell you everything about them. This was a hobby that he had up to the time that he passed away. When Justin started into school, he began struggling on and off, and he was eventually diagnosed with ADHD, which we struggled with medication. He made it through and started his school career of baseball and basketball, and then eventually football. He loved it all. Justin was just a normal boy who grew up in a 2-parent home and pretty much had everything. He went through all the changes that a kid goes through, whether they were good times or challenging times. When things would get tough, I would put him into some counseling at times just to see if he could figure things out. While he was transitioning into his teens, he added track to his activities and was even nominated at one time for Student of the Month. In high school, he was social and was on the 9th grade basketball team. But by the 10th grade, things were starting to spiral. He started hanging around a different crowd, and we found that he was smoking marijuana. We found it in his room one day, and we had him arrested just for the weekend to show him that we were not going to tolerate his actions. Justin was hanging out with a neighbor boy who I thought was a nice guy, but was really showing him a life of dysfunction. This young man also passed away. We continued more counseling for him as he was starting that non-motivational attitude and battling with us. Around 17, he started with Xanax. I was noticing how he would seem sleepy and dozing off at times. At 19, he went to the doctor and he gave him a prescription for anxiety. It wasn't long that he ended up wrecking his car because he had a seizure from it. I took him to the doctor and I made them wean him off of it. He also found the world of opiate pain pills when a guy at work gave him Vicodin. Although he was abusing these pills, he was able to halfway function in life. He had a lot of opportunities come his way, but some of the motivation was just not there. He also developed a love for music and was playing his keyboard. Even with all this going on, it was a busy year for him. He was recording music, taking acting and modeling classes, and ended up becoming a father to a little boy in December of 2006, all while he was occasionally abusing these pills. When Justin was 20, a modeling agent out of New York City called and wanted him to come to New York to work with him, an opportunity that he did not take. He also auditioned for a movie but wouldn't learn his lines. He was also given a great job opportunity at the Life Skills Center, but just couldn't seem to focus on it. The reality was, with these addictions, they caused no motivation, lying, and manipulation. In the early 2008, I thought maybe he was starting to mature a little and was coming out of it. But by the end of the year, he was abusing them again. He went to the Greenwood Center in Springboro for a short time, but he stopped because he said he didn't feel he had a problem. I kept saying, "What am I going to tell your 2-year-old son if you die of an accidental drug overdose?" He would say, "Oh, Mom, don't worry, I'm fine." I always felt anxiety and I wanted to fix him, but I learned that this was never going to happen. By spring of 2009, Justin got a factory job where I found out later he was introduced to OxyContin, and which I believe took his addiction to another level. He eventually quit going to work, nodding out, and he seemed out of it at times. We noticed some CDs and movies were missing, as well as a few other things. I caught him getting money out of my purse and his dad's wallet, pawning what he could of his, or just anything. I could see that things were really spiraling fast, and during his last few weeks of life, I went to some of his so-called friends and asked them what he was taking. No one would tell me. I was really in that panic mode by then. I couldn't seem to find any help. On his final weekend of life, Justin was very excited because a rapper was going to buy some of his music. He told me that he wanted to go back on Monday to the Greenfield Center and get his life together and maybe go to college and get his girlfriend and their son out of that apartment complex that they lived in. I felt a little bit of hope that day, but that hope was crushed. He had lost track of what he was putting in his mouth. He spent that day celebrating and telling everyone about his plans and passing out his CDs like he always did. That Saturday night, a neighbor friend brought Justin home at 8:30, not telling us that he may have overdone it that day. We were out back, and we didn't even know he was home. He was asleep, and we did not think too much about it. And then Sunday came, and I got up to go to church. Something told me to check on him, and he wasn't breathing. I screamed for my husband, and he called 911, and there is nothing worse than watching 7 paramedics work on your son for 45 minutes trying to revive him. We went to the hospital knowing what they were going to tell us. Our only child was gone at 22 years old from an accidental mixture of Xanax and methadone pain pills. Our life changed in a blink of an eye. I have gone through many emotions: sad, depressed, embarrassment, angry, and I still go through these every day of my life. I miss my Justin Matthew every minute of every day. I want to be a voice for my son, and I hope this epidemic battle goes away. Because of some other circumstances, we are now caring for our grandson, Devin, who is now 7. I feel like I need to protect him from all of this evil called addiction. If you are struggling or you know someone that is, please pick up information for them. Say lots of prayers and ask God to deliver you from these evil addictions. And to anyone that is dealing with the loss of their child, read this Bible passage. It's Isaiah 57, 1 and 2. It says, "Good people pass away, and the godly often die before their time. No one seems to care or wonder why. No one seems to understand that God is protecting them from the evil to come. For those who follow godly paths, they will rest in peace when they die." I look at this passage often to remind myself that God is now protecting my son. Thank you for listening.